Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to the Reptile Barn. Have a bit of a rant for you today. We're going to talk about conservation. So, my rant is not against conservation. I like conservation. But it seems to me that many reptile keepers, especially ones on social media or bigger, more successful breeders, talk constantly about how they're a conservationist. This just irks me. All right? I'm like, either they don't know what a conservationist actually is, or they do, but they don't care because they're just using it to help build up a more positive public persona for themselves, right? Again, I'm not calling out any specific person. They all do it. Uh, anyway, yeah, no one in particular in mind, honestly. I hear a lot of people do this. So, why does this bother me? I guess the biggest pet peeve I have is that real conservation is this desperately needed cause in the world. What reptile keepers are doing, while it's awesome, I'm a reptile keeper, it's not conservation, and it's not really adding to conservation in very many ways. So, what do I mean? I got my degree in wildlife conservation, but I'm not a conservationist. Okay, I'm a breeder and I'm a collector of reptiles, even some educating, but that's not really conservation. Educating people is spectacular. If you can convince some people to stop killing the snakes that they find in nature, yeah, you're contributing somewhat to conservation. But in general, conservation scientists are trying to stop species and entire ecosystems and biomes from deteriorating, or ones that have already deteriorated, they're trying to return them to a more robust system. Help their population rebound, rebuild whatever was missing from their habitat, or that most of the time humans had wrecked in their habitat so that they can return to a natural cycle, right? Now, it gets a little bit dicey because species have been going extinct from the dawn of time, right? Since there were species, well before humans were wrecking things. The difference is we are such a disruptive and potent species that we are disrupting ecosystems and destroying entire species that wouldn't have otherwise been in that dire strait, right? So our conservationists are trying to kind of get rid of some of our bad influence as a species on other species, and help them recover. So I look at these reptile keepers, and they are high-end collectors, right? They have these beautiful collections of rare species, and they're like, well, this species is rare in the wild. It's threatened or it's endangered or whatever. It's rare, and I am breeding them in captivity. I must be a conservationist. Well, no, you're probably not. I'm not saying none of them are. I don't know these people in person, but I doubt it. Are you contributing money to conservation causes? If so, yeah, you're a conservationist. You're certainly a philanthropist, right? Are you providing or preserving crucial habitat for threatened and endangered species? Probably not. You're probably not. You probably have a giant house, and you probably have a car, and you probably are terrible for the environment, just like the rest of us. But if so, if you are out there fighting for preserving forests and wetlands in these riparian zones and really crucial zones and ecosystem types that are good for reptiles, then yeah. But otherwise, no. Now, you point to your rare breeding reptiles. Are you contributing to zoos that are doing reintroductions, or non-governmental organizations that are working to restore a habitat and replace whatever native fauna was there? If not, you're not conserving the species. A conservation scientist who is breeding an animal in captivity to return to to nature, that's like the last step of conservation, not the first step, right? First, you have to restore the habitat. The animal didn't just randomly go extinct. It got extirpated from its native range because humans were hunting it, or because we introduced a bunch of invasive species that wrecked it. But most likely, we destroyed its habitat. You can have a pristine, beautiful forest. If it's crisscrossed with tons of roads and four-wheeler trails and campsites, that's not prime habitat any longer for most of these animals. It's just not. You can be walking through the forest and it's so beautiful and you're like, look, we're living in harmony with nature, but the animals don't see it that way. If they have to cross a bunch of roads every day in order to get from where they sleep to where they eat to where they drink water to where they breed, that's not prime habitat anymore. Many of them can survive, many of them even can still thrive, but many of them can't, right? I've pulled out Ursula here, and she was ticked, by the way, that I did not have any food for her, but she seems to be good now. But boy, was she just taking pop after pop at me, hoping I had food. But I didn't have food, and she eventually calmed down. Hopefully she's forgiven me. Anyway, I have her out because eastern indigos, Drymarchon cooperi, are a threatened but not yet endangered species from mostly Florida, right? Also Georgia, Alabama, but mostly Florida. We've talked a lot about them on the vlog before, so I don't want to get all into it again, but me breeding eastern indigos in captivity as a breeder, as an individual, will never contribute one iota to their conservation. The governments, the state and national governments, have to pass off on certain things, work together, often with non-governmental organizations. Again, I've talked about the Orianne Society before on the vlog. They are conservationists. You want to see what real conservationists do? Go to the Orianne Society's website. Here it is. Check them out. They are fantastic. They are good at what they do, and they work hard. And I'm not saying you have to have a PhD to be a real conservationist. I'm not saying that at all. Or you have to donate so many thousands of dollars. That's not it either. Educating people is a very valuable thing. And I know that lots of these big breeders are doing shows and birthday parties, and they are educating people, and that's fantastic. I'm not trying to demean their work, and I'm certainly not trying to demean their collections. I love reptiles. I want my own super cool exotic reptiles, right? But don't confuse that with the life labor that conservationists are going through. Often not very well paid for it either. So I don't know. I want to show that there is a difference between what a traditional conservationist is doing and what these breeders and reptile collectors are doing. It is different. I really do want to point out that the work that these people who are deep into reptile education are doing is invaluable. They should be considered reptile educators, reptile advocates, and that is badly needed. We need promoters in this field big time. I feel like one of the flaws in the reptile hobby is that there's a lot of us, me included, who are quiet, introverted, private people. We just want to have our snake room and not interact with the world that much. We want our animals around us. We need big, showy, noticeable people. We need more Steve Irwins, right? Man, millions of people are into reptiles because of that one guy. He was loud. He was out there. He probably made plenty of mistakes that if he were around these days doing that, he'd be shredded. People would hate him. And that's ridiculous. One group that I would point to that never gets any credit are Chris and Martin Kratt. I know that they're for a much younger audience. And so maybe us adults and teenagers who are big in the reptile world don't give them any credit. But man, those two have reached tens of millions of people, entire generations of children, me included. That was my first introduction to the world of animal husbandry and education and nature, and was those guys. So and there's more. There's so many more. I don't want to make a big list because I'll inevitably leave somebody off of it. But those people do great work. Please, if you are like, oh man, I thought I was doing conservation, but now I don't. No, you're contributing to helping conservation, but there are scientists who have dedicated their whole lives to conservation, to going out in the field and improving habitats and restoring species or groups of species or entire ecosystems and biomes. And that is a different field, and it should be treated as such. We should be more professional and expert in our use of language than just anyone who keeps rare reptiles is a conservationist. No, you're not. Many times you're a for-profit breeder, like we are. Anyways, I don't want this to be a hateful rant. I guess that's my little bit of educating for today. I hope I didn't offend anyone. That was not my intent. If you have your favorite YouTubers out there who are big reptile educators and you think that I'm hating on them, I promise I'm not. I don't know of a single major reptile YouTuber that I absolutely hate. I've probably watched at least a few episodes of most of their YouTube channels. So I promise I'm not trying to like secretly dig at Brian Barczyk or Snake Discovery or somebody. These people are spectacular at promoting reptiles. I'm sure that they've made mistakes. If I watched more of their stuff, maybe I'd be like, oh, they should do this. But as far as like bringing people to reptiles, man, those guys and many others are just fabulous. So I'm not trying to start a controversy of fans of somebody against the haters of somebody here, but conservation is different, and I think it should be treated differently. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm too old school, or maybe I'm out of line, but that's how I feel about it. And so it's my channel. That's what I'm going to say. Also, it's a great excuse to pull out a beautiful specimen here who is still puffing her throat and huffing at. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but man, does she want to eat. It is late at night. She should be in bed. I shouldn't have even pulled her out, but she was certain that I had food. And she just came boiling out of her cave like a rampaging rhino, mouth open, just grabbing everything in sight. I wish I would have caught that on camera. It would have been a way more interesting video than all this rambling. But anyways, we'll put her back to bed and she'll be totally fine. But yeah, so as always, go down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if you agree. I don't care. I just love hearing from you guys. So frequent, almost every single video, in fact, somebody comments something that is a new perspective for me, something I hadn't thought about before. So I love your comments, guys. So please, if you have anything to say, go ahead and say it. Like as always, I will never be offended by your comments. And till next time, we're the Reptile Barn.